Hello, welcome to Elizabeth Reads. We have A Place Called Perfect by Helena Duggan, and we are presently on Chapter 11, Introductions. The small, flat box fitted neatly in her hand. It was dark blue and covered in a bendy ladder-like pattern. As she turned it over, the ladders caught the light, giving off a silvery sheen. There was a stamp on the cover with the words Optical Prescriptions in faded gold lettering. The box was closed on one side by a small magnet, and rusted hinges held firm on the other. Slowly she prized it open. A pair of glasses sat proud on a dark blue velvet lining. The frames were plain, not gold-rimmed like the ones she got from the Archers, and they seemed to be made of rough-cut wood. The lenses were round and clear, not rose-tinted, and the arms of the glasses were cut in tiny segments, making them flexible enough to bend round the ears. A label, brown by time, sat centered inside the lid. It read, Optical Prescription Spectacle Makers, 135 Wickham Terrace. Where was Wickham Terrace? She didn't recognize it as a street in Perfect. She took off her gold-rimmed specs and fitted on the wooden pair. Strangely, she could see through them. The lenses suited her perfectly. She was just scanning the curtains when a figure caught her eye. Ah! She screamed, throwing the wooden glasses from her face. The room turned blurry, and she scrambled for her gold-rimmed specs. You saw me? Violet grabbed her duvet and pulled it quickly up over her head. It flew from her grasp and fell to the floor. You saw me? The voice said again. I didn't, Violet shivered. I didn't see anything. I'm not talking to anyone. It's just my imagination. You did. You saw me. The voice sounded ecstatic. You saw me standing by the curtains. Footsteps ran for the bed, and suddenly Violet was bouncing from side to side as if someone was jumping on her mattress. The glasses! It has to be the glasses, the voice said again. The bed stopped bouncing, and there was a thud. The footsteps started on the floor again, racing across the room. Here, put them back on. Her hand was pulled open, and the wooden glasses were shoved into her grasp. I promise I won't hurt you. She'd heard this boy's voice before. He sounded sincere. Slowly, she moved the glasses towards her face and pulled the arms around her ears once more. She kept her eyes shut. Please, the voice said again. A breeze swished past her nose as if a hand was waving back and forth in front of her face. Slowly, she opened her eyes. There, at the edge of the bed, stood a boy, and he was waving madly in the air. He was looking straight at her and was 12, maybe 13, and dressed head to toe in black. He had jet black hair that flopped round his ears, and his white face was dappled in tiny freckles that mostly gathered round his nose. His eyes were deep navy, almost black, like the night sky. Something about them unsettled her. You see me, he said, jumping into the air. A smile filled the boy's face, and Violet couldn't help but return it. His teeth sparkled too, like he'd never eaten sweets in his life. He had the most contagious smile she had ever seen. They stared silently at each other, and a little awkwardness flooded the room. Violet tried hard not to blush as she racked her brain for something to say. I'm Boy, the stranger said at last, breaking the silence. I'm Violet, she replied, shaking his extended hand. Is your name really Boy? Yes, Boy nodded. But that's not even a name. Yes, it is. I've always been called Boy, just like you've always been called Violet. But what do your parents call you? You must have a name like Tom or Dara. I know a few boys from home, and they all had real names. None of them were called Boy. I don't have parents, he smiled. Oh. There was a little silence, and unsure of what to say next, she copied what adults said at funerals. I'm sorry for your loss. I didn't lose them, Boy laughed. I just never had any. You can't never have had parents, Violet replied. Everybody has parents. Well, I don't, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm better off. Look at how yours treat you. Hey, Violet exclaimed, don't say that about my parents. They're the best anyone could ever have. And why have you been crying for the last few hours? Don't deny it. I saw you. She fell silent and looked away. I didn't mean to upset you, Violet, Boy said. It's just I've been watching you for a while, and I know your parents are changing. What do you mean? They're changing. It's this place. It does that to people. After a while, everyone changes. But what do you mean by changes? Violet asked, though she sort of knew what he meant already. Well, I can only remember a few new people arriving in Perfect, but they were all normal when they got here, Boy replied. At first, they can see me. I even spoke to one man, but after a day or two, they go blind, then they get their glasses and start to change. First, they ignore me, then they begin to change their clothes, their hair, the way they talk, even the way they walk, and all of a sudden, they become just like everyone else in this town. I know, Violet whispered. My mom has changed so much since we moved here. I can't talk to her anymore. It's the rose-tinted glasses, Boy said bluntly. They do something to change reality. What do you mean? Without them, I can't see. But without them, you can see. You can see reality. It's just really fuzzy. Take these ones off, Boy said. Violet was still wearing the wooden pair. She looked at him but didn't move. Trust me, he said. Slowly, she took the glasses off and held them firm in her grip. Everything was dark and blurry. Now, he said, can you see that? Something thick and solid moved across her vision. It was really fuzzy, but she could see it. Yes, she nodded. Are you moving your hand or something across my face? Yeah, Boy said. Without any glasses, you can still see me. You can see reality. It's just really fuzzy. Now, put your gold-rimmed ones back on. He put them back in her hand. She could feel the hook of the arm slot uncomfortably behind her ears as she pushed them on. She looked around the room. Boy had disappeared. She leaned over the side of her bed to check underneath it and then got out of bed and checked inside the wardrobe, but he was nowhere to be seen. It was really weird, as if he'd vanished into thin air. The wooden glasses still sat on her bed. She climbed back onto the mattress, took off her gold rim pair, and put them back on. See, Boy said, suddenly appearing right where he'd stood moments before. Bet I disappeared altogether. But how can I see you now? Violet stammered, confused. It's the wooden glasses, he said. I don't know how they work, but they work, and that's all I care about. It's not easy being invisible. But why are you invisible? Why can't I see you without these? Beats me, Boy sighed. I was hoping your dad would know that. I came here the night you arrived to ask him to help me and my friends. I'd heard he was here to fix people's blindness, so I thought he might be able to figure out why we are invisible. But the Archers were here, and I didn't want them to think your family was mad. My family is mad, Violet half whispered, looking down at her sheets. Boy smiled, like he really knew what she meant. Maybe this boy could be her friend. Imagine if your dad was talking to me and all the Archers could see was thin air. Your dad would lose his job straight away, he continued. So I waited and waited for them to leave that night, but it was getting so late I thought I'd be caught. I came back early the next morning, but your dad was already blind. All of you were. But you kept following me, Violet said. I heard you, and at the Emporium there was someone chasing you? It was a watcher, Boy sighed. They don't allow us into Perfect. What's a watcher? The Watchers guard Perfect and stop people like me getting over the wall into the town, Boy replied. The wall? Yes, Violet, there's a huge wall separating my home from yours. But you got out? Violet replied, puzzled. I wanted to give you those, he said, pointing to the glasses. Why me? Because you were different, Boy smiled. You weren't changing. But what can I do? I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about glasses or why you're invisible or where you're from or anything. I don't even know much about Perfect, Violet said, her head frazzled. No, but you could tell your dad. You could show him the wooden glasses and tell him my story. He might be able to help, Boy pleaded. But I don't know your story. I don't know anything about you, she snapped, thumping the mattress with her fist. Boy looked down at his feet. Silence wrapped the room. I'm sorry. Violet's face was a little flushed. I wish I could help you, but Dad's gone to an optician's conference. At least that's what the Archers told Ma'am. You don't sound too sure. I'm not. I don't know. I think he would have told me if he was going. That's parents for you, Boy huffed. It's not my parents, Violet said. I told you already, my parents are good. Or at least they were before we came here. Silence filled the air again. And then Boy sighed. Well, we've been invisible for so long, I'm sure we can wait a little longer. Who's we? Violet asked, unsure she wanted to know the answer. Come on, I'll show you, Boy said, grabbing her hand and pulling her off the mattress. I'll show you my home. Can't it wait till the morning? No, it can't. It has to be at night. The Watchers patrol in the day. Patrol where? You'll see. Boy smiled. That's the end of chapter 11. Join me next time for chapter 12 of A Place Called Perfect.